SITREP World Briefing for June 6, 2026. The United States and Iran exchanged direct strikes across the Gulf on Saturday in a test of a fragile ceasefire intended to contain a wider regional war. The U.S. military said it intercepted Iranian drones and then launched missile strikes on radar sites in southern Iran. Tehran responded by targeting sites in Kuwait and Bahrain. France 24 and the BBC reported that Iranian fire included ballistic missiles aimed toward the two Gulf states, affecting some of the region's strategically sensitive military hubs. U.S. officials said American forces intercepted most of the incoming Iranian missiles, with one additional missile not reaching its apparent target, according to reports that put the total launch at 7. The exchange is significant because Kuwait and Bahrain host key facilities tied to U.S. regional operations, and any sustained attack on them could increase the risk of drawing more Gulf governments into conflict. By striking sites in southern Iran after claiming it had downed drones, Washington indicated it was prepared to respond directly inside Iranian territory rather than limit action to interception and base defense. Ukraine said it struck cargo ships near Taganrog in the Sea of Azov, hitting vessels that Kyiv described as part of trade routes serving Russian-occupied territory. The BBC and Euronews both reported that the attacks targeted 5 ships carrying what Ukraine called illegal cargo, and that at least 5 sailors were killed. Euronews identified 2 of the vessels as the Natra and the Zircon, describing them as ships linked to Russia's Shadow Fleet and heading to load grain at a port associated with supplies taken from occupied Ukrainian areas. The Sea of Azov has become a critical rear area logistics zone for Russia since Moscow occupied parts of southern Ukraine and tightened its control over access from the Kerch Strait. By hitting merchant shipping rather than frontline armor or depots, Ukraine appeared to be signaling that commercial maritime traffic tied to occupied ports can also be treated as part of Russia's war system. The deaths of 5 sailors and the damage to multiple cargo vessels are likely to intensify scrutiny of shipping serving ports in occupied territory. Taganrog in southwestern Russia sits close to maritime approaches that connect occupied Ukrainian coastline to Russian ports, making the area important for both military supply and export flows. Ukraine's acknowledgement of the attack suggests Kyiv wanted to publicize the operation as part of a broader campaign against the economic infrastructure that supports Russia's occupation. The incident also highlights the expanding reach of the war at sea, where cargo vessels, fuel routes, and grain shipments have increasingly become targets. A Ukrainian maritime drone exploded in Constanța, Romania, on Thursday after veering off course near the Black Sea port. France 24 and Euronews reported that the drone self-destructed or exploded after losing its intended path, with Ukraine's Navy saying Russian jamming had knocked it off course. Constanța is Romania's main Black Sea port and a crucial outlet for regional shipping, including traffic connected to Ukraine, since Russia's full-scale invasion disrupted normal maritime routes. The account from Ukraine's Navy that Russian interference caused the drone to drift highlights how jamming in the Black Sea can create immediate consequences far from the intended battlefield. NASA ordered astronauts aboard the International Space Station to shelter inside their docked spacecraft and prepare for a possible evacuation, while crews carried out repairs linked to an air leak in the station's Russian segment. The alert was described as brief, and it came after the leak problem worsened enough for mission managers to take the precautionary step during work in orbit on June 5th. The air leak was reported in the Russian module of the orbiting laboratory, and NASA's decision to place the crew on evacuation alert showed that the agency treated the repair period as a moment of elevated risk rather than a routine maintenance task. The International Space Station is a permanently crewed research platform operated through international cooperation, so a problem in one section can quickly become a station-wide operational issue involving crew movement, spacecraft readiness, and coordination between flight controllers on the ground. In this case, the crew remained on alert only temporarily. Canada barred cattle imports from Texas after a second infected calf was identified in the state, as Texas authorities declared a state of disaster over an outbreak of New World screwworm, a flesh-eating parasite that lays eggs in open wounds. The restriction added an international trade consequence to what had already become an animal health emergency in the southern United States, where officials are trying to prevent the pest from spreading through ranching areas and across state lines. The screwworm is especially dangerous because its larvae feed on living tissue, which can badly injure or kill livestock if infestations are not treated quickly. U.S. authorities said they would intensify their response with a campaign that includes releasing sterile flies and using trained dogs to help detect infected animals. That strategy draws on a long-established eradication method, flooding affected areas with sterile male flies so wild populations cannot reproduce, gradually collapsing the infestation. The outbreak has drawn particular attention because the insect has now been found in the United States for the first time since 1966. Making the Texas cases a major test of federal and state animal health defenses in one of North America's most important cattle-producing regions. The Canadian ban highlights how quickly an agricultural disease event in Texas can affect cross-border livestock commerce, biosecurity controls, and herd management decisions beyond the immediate outbreak zone. Texas sits at the center of a vast cattle industry tied to feedlots, breeding operations, and export markets, so even a limited number of confirmed infections can trigger wider inspections, transport limits, and treatment costs for ranchers. With officials now combining emergency declarations, surveillance, sterile insect releases, and detection dogs, the immediate objective is to protect animals already at risk and to stop a pest once eliminated from the United States from regaining a permanent foothold. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.